serious, what are some places on Earth that are still unexplored because locals fear them, and what are they afraid of? Bottomless lakes in New Mexico are what they sound like. Some of the small lakes have no bottom and feed underground rivers and streams stretching hundreds, possibly thousands of miles. Trackers have been tossed in and found days later in the Gulf of Mexico. They have claimed many lives of careless swimmers, and the dangerous lakes are now sealed off. I swam in the safe ones nearby, but always felt kinda creeped out. Morgan Island, Akamonkey Island, a roughly 500-acre island off the coast of Beaufort, SC, south of Charleston, is off limits due to a colony of monkeys living there who are infected with herpes B. 400 of them, research animals, were relocated there in 1979 and have apparently thrived. The tomb of the Chinese Emperor, Qin Shi Huangdi. Although we have seen images of his famous terracotta warriors, nobody has ever entered the tomb, since he was the most tyrannical and violent leader in Chinese history, and because he was so powerful, there is a lot of superstition about his evil spirit and other crazy things about it. Not to mention, there is rumor of a lake of mercury within the tomb, so it could prove dangerous to open at all. The Chinese government is not allowing the tomb to be opened and zealously restricts people from having access to the land surrounding the tomb. Just interesting. I would really like to know what's inside tbh. People are mentioning Mao being way more tyrannical. I know he was horrible, but I was under the impression that, although Mao killed more people, that was partially due to the length of his reign vs that of Qin, and also that Qin employed a lot more brutal tactics unlike Mao's extreme communism. The Nahanni National Park in northwest Canada, also known as the Valley of Headless Men. There are no roads leading in, and it is only accessible by boat or plane. Ancient tribes of the Nahanni Valley were afraid to settle within the region as they believed it to be an evil, haunted place inhabited by various spirits, specters, and devils. In the 18th century, Europeans began arriving to the area looking for gold. In 1908, two brothers Willie and Frank McLeod pushed farther into the valley looking for gold and disappeared only to turn up beheaded. More beheadings and mysterious deaths began occurring over the years. In 1945, a trapper appeared to have been flash frozen despite evidence of having a fire going and clutching a pack of matches. Many others just simply vanished, never to be found. Around 44 people had vanished under unknown mysterious circumstances by 1969. To this day there's no answer to what was responsible for the beheadings or the disappearances. The area is so forbidding and remote that very few people other than adventurous rafters ever attempt to explore it. Despite being a national park, Nahanni Valley is almost completely unexplored. Edit. Other known beheadings were a prospector named Martin Jorgensen whose cabin burned down in 1917 and his skeleton was recovered from the ashes with no sign of his skull. And in 1945, a miner from Ontario was found dead in his sleeping bag with his head missing. I tried looking more into where Martin Jorgensen is from and almost everything I found all had him listed as Swiss, with one place listing him as Norwegian, so I'll remove calling him Swiss until I find a conclusive answer. I promise I was just going off the reading I had done and wasn't just making my own assumptions. Hauska Castle was built to cover up the opening to hell, a seemingly bottomless pit from which the demons of hell would crawl out at night to wreak havoc. Located in the Czech countryside. Before the castle was built to seal this entrance to hell, prisoners who had been condemned to death were thrown in. Scary crap, my dudes. The catacombs under Paris. There are about 150 miles of maze-like tunnels under the city. Only a small portion gets toured by the public. People have ventured deep into them and would go missing for days. North Sentinel Island. Its inhabitants are one of the few, possibly one of the only peoples untouched by technology. They're also very violent and protective of their land against outsiders, attacking anyone who goes near. Local governments even decided they have jurisdiction to kill anyone who interferes with them to help preserve their pre-technology way of life. So no one goes there except at their own risk. Because of this, it's impossible to explore the island properly, and even more unfortunately, learn about their incredible culture. Recently, an ancient city was discovered in the vicinity / in the forest area in Rio Platano, Honduras. recently, because the cartels have such a big freaking hold over it that it's simply impossible to go in there without dying or worse. So much history that could await along that river, not found because of drug lords. La Ciudad Blanca, I believe it was called. There's an area in Tibet called the Tsangpo Gorge that allegedly has a massive hidden waterfall that only appears to people who have reached nirvana. Last I checked, the Chinese don't allow people to explore the area much, but that may have changed by now. There's a book about it written by a guy named Ian Baker who did 2 expeditions into the gorge. Believe it or not, but there are a lot of parts of Greenland that are still unexplored. However, it's not really due to fear. It's more that it's a giant sheet of ice. The Darien Gap, a 100-mile gap in the Pan America Highway, covering terrain that includes Panama and Colombia, but is effectively governed by neither. Most of it is marshland, and with virtually no infrastructure it is a wet cesspool of tropical disease and, historically, paramilitary groups. People do live in it, in certain regions, and migrants traverse its more worn paths out of desperation. But it's virtually guaranteed to claim the lives of the careless. There is nothing of civilization or man's law there. I'd imagine many parts of the Amazon are unexplored, and there's a fear of uncontacted people who live there. Karlat-Syakhl in Siberia. The name means dead mountain in Mansi, the language of the local tribe there. It's also where the infamous Dyatlov Pass incident took place. There's a huge sinkhole behind my old house in Kentucky. Kentucky is absolutely full of caves. Anyways, it has a river flowing at the bottom and through a tunnel. So there's 2 cave entrances that nobody in my neighborhood had the balls to go into. My mom's friend visited one day, and she's a geologist, so she's huge into caves and wanted to see. I brought Get there to take a look. She basically glanced at it and was like, frick no, we'll die if we go in there. The current is very strong, and the rock surrounding it looked very eroded to her. She said it's at high risk of collapsing, and the current would sweep us underground either way. I wish she had brought more of her tools and stuff. Supposedly she cold put in like a sonar buoy to see how far it goes. There are some places down the Atchafalaya Basin that no human has ever set foot on because of the 17+ foot alligators there. Seriously. I will try to find the link to the Louisiana wildlife, but there was this one that bit the front end of an airboat completely off. Someone has a picture of it carrying a whole deer in its mouth. It wasn't photoshopped. There's this island close to India. Just kidding. La Cueva de los Teos, a cave system in Ecuador that has been explored before, but not fully due to religious reasons, superstitions from the aboriginals, and because the Ecuadorian government for some reason has it practically off limits to anyone, instead giving permission to explore a smaller cave system that is connected to the former, but it is not the real one. Different artifacts have been found, but a special one stands out of a human eagle form, most likely a god, that is for all intents and purposes exactly the same as another one that is found on ancient Mesopotamia, if I'm remembering correctly. Weird considering that ancient cultures didn't have any sort of contact with each other. That, plus golden scripts, the normal Indiana Jones stuff. Oh, and Neil Armstrong was once there as part of one of the expeditions in the 70s. One of the world's tallest mountains still has never been climbed because of religious reasons. Not sure if it's fear, but it's fascinating to think that there's still a first summit left out there. Hades Gate, or the Gate to Hell in Denizli, Turkey. Supposedly, there's so much carbon dioxide coming out of the entrance of the ancient site that anything that gets close to it dies from asphyxiation. Scientists have determined, because this cave sits along a fault line, that the carbon dioxide filled it from an opening in the Earth's crust. I lived in the northern part of the Republic of Congo in a town called Imfondo. It was extremely remote, only accessible by boat or plane. There were many villages surrounding our city that were even more remote and only accessible by a dig-out canoe. One of these places was Lake Tele. The locals would talk about an animal or monster called Mokelmbembe in Lingala, the tribal language. It meant one who stops the flow of water. They basically thought it was a huge dinosaur that lived in the water there. They would describe it like we would a brontosaurus. They were terrified of where it lived because there were old legends that it would kill people with its eyes, and if anyone ate its meat it would kill the whole village. It was hard to explore that part of the country because people tended to avoid it. Bhutan's Gangkhar Pensum remains the largest mountain in the world, never summited at 7.5 kilometers at its highest elevation, 3 kilometer prominence. The tomb of Genghis Khan. We know it's in Mongolia, and probably near the area he was born, but other than that we don't know a damn thing. For a few reasons. When he died they hid it on purpose. The people of Mongolia don't want it found. And I remember hearing somewhere that it might have been found by Russia and is in an area where they've got something like missile silos or something like that. But, oh boy, I can't even imagine what he'd have been buried with. The Pine Barrens in New Jersey. Creepy crap, creepy folklore. Jersey Devil's home. KKK meeting ground. Dead body disposal site for the Mayfair. Ghost girl in random pond. Many other bizarre things there. All I ever saw was a clan meeting and some very creepy satanic cult stuff in an abandoned house out there. Books and Weird NJ have articles and such on the place. Really interesting tbh. Kahului. It's one of the Hawaiian islands. No one lived there due to no fresh water source. During WWII, the US Army used it as a training ground and bomb range. For a long time people couldn't go there cause there were still landmines around the island. They may have been cleared out now, but there still isn't anyone who lives there. Also, Molokai had a lot of beaches with strong riptides that were very dangerous. I remember we were afraid to go to the beach when we visited. There are some other beaches like that as well on the other islands. Colombia has a lot of unexplored mountains and jungles, which makes them perfect for guerrilla fighters and drug cartels to hide/operate in, and also dangerous to explore. Padmanabhaswamy Temple in Kerala, India. There are 6 underground vaults labeled at OF in the temple, out of which 5 have been opened. From these 5 vaults, about a ton of gold and form of jewelry, coins and utensils has been found. Apart from diamond and other precious stones, necklaces stretching 9 feet long. But the real mystery lies in the Vault B, which is yet to be opened. There's a warning on the door, written in Sanskrit, that curse and calamity will befall on anyone who tries to open the door. The door is said to have been sealed with Nagabandham, or the snake seal, by a Siddha Purashaka, a very powerful sage who has realized the true potential that a human can achieve through spiritual disciplines such as meditation. A Siddha Purush is like a living god, and only a Siddha Purush can open this vault again using the Garuda mantra. Any other human being who tries to open the vault will fail and feel the wrath of the 7-headed serpent that guards the vault. This 7-headed serpent is one of the primal beings of creation and servant of the creator of the universe, God Vishnu. The Nahanni Valley in western Canada, called the Headless Valley, in particular a place called the 200-mile Gorge. The natives that lived there didn't like outsiders. The other natives feared them, and they had a penchant for decapitating victims and supposedly just vanished. The region is still largely unexplored because it is extremely remote, and if legends are to be believed, cursed place has it all. Native ghost warriors, Bigfoot sightings, aliens, caves full of ancient dead goats, and prehistoric animals. In the area around Kenora, Ontario, roughly 2 hours east of Winnipeg, there have been reports of a Wendigo/Wendigo spirit loose for at least 150 years. On a nearby island, called Tunnel Island, there is a white pine aged to be roughly 300 years old. The Wendigo is said to live in the tree. There is even a sign stating the history, and warning any visitors to touch the tree at their own risk. For many years the Victoria mining claims on Rauchdi Bowl Mountain in British Columbia's north coast were voluntarily off limits due to massive amounts of radiation. The claims were mined for uranium during the Second World War, some of which ended up in the Trinity test. It was reported that for the first decade a blue-white glow could be seen emanating from the valley where the mine was located. To this day the waste piles are devoid of moisture and snow even in the dead of winter. Almost everyone who worked at the Victoria claims died around the age of 45, almost all due to cancer of some form or another. I visited the place back in 2004 with a radiation detector and was blown away by how hot the waste pile was. Under the sea, mostly, I have no clue why. The Mississippi is big, deep, and very muddy. There are loads of dams that need maintenance, but lots of divers won't do the job. There is the hazard of being sucked into the hydroelectric dam. But another reason given is that they are scared of the catfish. The fish just need to sit there and the food goes to them and they can get huge. Sure, the Mississippi is explored, but verifying if those catfish are even there or not is next to impossible. Many of the graves of the Chinese emperors have tombs that have been discovered but yet to be excavated due to various reasons such as funding, dangers, respect, and other reasons. North Sentinel Island. It is a small island near India with a population of around 40 people. We've made contact one in 1780 when a British ship crashed there. The locals attacked that ship and killed a bunch of the people and scarred off everyone else. When we tried to re-establish contact in 1980 via helicopter, they launched arrows at it. Some say that there is some kind of secret there, and yeah. Many underground catacombs in Paris are still unexplored, and the few that try to explore disappear. I live in the NJ Pine Barrens. There are a lot of spots people have never been, or haven't been for centuries. It's half rational and half irrational. The spots in the woods are so overgrown and under shade that there are places you could never walk through between trails, and it would be a serious pain in the ass to excavate. The other problem is that all these areas are haunted, or the Jersey Devil goes through according to locals. The real actual problem is that the Pine Barrens of NJ are like a desert swamp. The roots go way down through the sand and the parts above ground are way overgrown and full of all the wildlife that used to be here. Most people in South Jersey are only used to squirrels and deers, and that's it. Ciudad Blanca, the lost city of the monkey god. There is a wildlife park where the erosion happens both vertically and horizontally, resulting in a maze of rocky canyons where every rock is razor sharp. Researchers sometimes go in there, but even taking a brief knee from stumbling can wind up getting you several inches of rock spike embedded into your kneecap. This is a local one to me. In Kent, UK, there are tunnels which supposedly run underneath the county town of Maidstone. People have found entrances and gone in, but they are usually too long/dark and flooded. Nobody knows quite why they are there. Rumors say they connect places that were important when they were built, including an old asylum that was demolished in recent years, where there was found an entrance to some tunnels. Additionally, there's an air raid shelter in the Maidstone Grammar School that hasn't been entered for many decades. The entrance is very thoroughly gated off, and old students say it was an entire underground school with multiple rooms designed classrooms, so that even in the event of an air raid, students could continue learning. There's even stories that behind the boards were secret rooms where the kids could hide if the Nazis sent a ground force into England. Kent is on the southern coast and near to London, so it'd be where the Nazis would logically land from France. Even if that doesn't make much sense, the shelter is off limits now, and me and my friends spent all our years there trying to get in. But the school didn't want to accept responsibility for any kids getting hurt down there. There are regions in India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands that are inhabited by tribes that are hostile to outsiders. The government doesn't want to disturb them, so those regions are quite unexplored. The Poveglia Island in Italy is off limits for public access. This is due to the horrors that had occurred at the island. It was a site of wars. Plague victims were dumped there, and it was once used as an armory for weapons. The island is believed to be severely haunted and dangerous. Edit. Oh yeah, there was also a mental asylum built there. There are lots of underground caves and caverns that are yet to be explored. Some roaming Bedouin tribes in the Sahara Desert in Egypt and the Sudan are rumored to accept demons in their society and are practices of black magic. This was a big topic of interest in the 80s, and many journalists tried to get interviews. Some went missing, and those that are allegedly found them said they saw people with animal legs and other weird stuff and barely avoided capture, deciding it wasn't worth the fame. Edit. Yeah, jinn can be good or bad, but the good kind aren't interested in humans. I heard about this from relatives talking about stuff that PPL don't usually talk about. I don't have any more info, but good luck. PPL over here take the concept of taboo very seriously, and this is one of those things. According to the last episode of Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown, there is a forested region of Bhutan that is not developed or even entered by the locals because it is said to inhabit evil spirits. That's about all I know. Just figured I'd share it. I found the fact that there is no roads, infrastructure, or human inhabitants in that area interesting. Even if Bhutanese people lose cattle that wander into that area, they apparently won't go after them. Right here in Rowley own backyard Rowley NorCal we have Mount Canopy, a dormant volcano. The surface of the mountain itself is well explored, but it is said to be full of caves. Allegedly the entrances were dynamited decades ago to keep kids from wandering in and getting killed. Part of the lore is that the cave complex connects to adjacent Clear Lake, and that the native Pomo tribe explored this area once during a drought that lowered the lake sufficiently. Divers have never found it, and it may also be a thermal feature that's too hot to explore. Hauska Castle. The legends about that place are terrifying, but very few have tried to explore the gateway to hell. In the Congo jungle there's a lot of unexplored area and some say there are still living pygmy dinosaurs living there. There are actually a ton of places that are unexplored and not very populated. Siberia, New Guinea, Patagonia, which is basically a big iceberg. One of my favorite is the world's largest cave in Vietnam. The surrounding cave systems also have never been surveyed. Satellites and drones can't do it either. It's so big it has its own river, jungle and ecosystem. Hang Son Doong was discovered less than 10 years ago and only 500 visitors per year are allowed in. The Strid is a terrifying river in Yorkshire. The reason it's so scary is because it looks so calm yet opens up to huge churning caverns of water where the riverbed should be.